So the first thing we realized was operations were a mess. We Staff was pretty unorganized. Our books were unorganized. Everybody was doing a bunch of things that there was no direction. There was no playbook. Now my overhead was big, so I don't only lose revenue, also my expenses are higher, so my margins are shrinking. We're recognizing we're not going to be able to get the money back. We're not getting into more debt, which is great, but we're not making any money.
Thanks for joining us. So start us out. Tell us where you're from, what is your business, and then we'll jump in.
Thank you so much for having me here today. All right. Like you say, my name is Nahuel. I own Iris. Iris is a tattoo and piercing studio. We started in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, together with my wife in 2012. In 2015, we opened our second location in Miami, and we've been growing ever since. Iris is a bootstrapped company. It started as a side gig for me, and then my wife joined, and it's been growing nonstop since we started. We serve about 1,000 clients every week across all three locations. We have Buenos Aires, Miami, and now Nashville. 58 employees, and
Building a little empire over there, and it's beautiful. And like, I'm not a tattoo guy. We talked about this, but it's like when you see your brand, when you see what you guys do, it's like I saw that, and even being someone who's not in the industry, like really has no interest in tattoos, I'm like, man, that is like visually appealing, right? And I think that is what's kind of separated you guys. Would you say you guys kind of view yourselves as kind of high end, almost luxury? Like, where would you place yourself in that market?
I often like to say that we are high end but approachable.
Yeah.
Not high end and extra luxury. We really are here to serve anybody. We're not extremely expensive and we're not unreachable. We're pretty approachable. The brand and all the aesthetics, it's the work of my wife Sabina. I think this is one of the things that made Iris so great is that I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a hospitality freak, and she's a great visual storyteller. Um, and we just happen to ignite.
That's a beautiful, like, that's a beautiful marriage, right? How it like all connects right there. So very, very cool. Um, and you started in Argentina, came up to Miami, and tell me about this build out that you did.
It was our second build out. What happened was we opened Miami in 2015, and for a number of years I was very happily running the company from my Buenos Aires base. I would come to Miami every month for about a week, and it was a pretty awesome operation. And then what happened was that COVID hit us, and Argentina had the most brutal lockdown in the world. We've been locked down for 18 months. And during those 18 months, I was unable to come and take care of a business. The business exploded. It grew exponentially. Just to give you an idea, 2020 and 2019, we did $1.3 million in revenue. In 2022, 3.6.
Wow.
So I wasn't here to take care of the business. By this time, we're gonna have to probably go back a little bit. This was running out of a office work leave apartment. I was running a pretty small operation that was getting very busy very rapidly, very greedy and very informal, if you want to call it. When they reopened the borders in Argentina late 2021, I told Sabina, my wife, we have to move to the US. We can't let this happen again. We have to take care of the business. So we moved the family to Miami in September 2021. And this is when we decided we need to give the brand the space that it needs, the layout that it's comfortable for my artists and my clients, and also a a location that represents the brand. We at a point we were renting 6 apartments in a building, where you had to get tattoos on the 5th floor and piercings on the 4th floor, and supplies, and it was too chaotic. And the company was making over $3 million a year, and it needed something like that. So that's when we decided we're gonna get a proper storefront, we're gonna get a proper place, and we're gonna start building it up.
You say, and just to clarify, you say 6 apartments. So in an apartment building and you're like, "Okay, we have grown to this size," which is a beautiful story. It's, like, amazing to hear that, basically doubling of the business in that period of time. Uh, you decided, okay, so you said 6. How many of those were tattoo? How many of those were, like, piercing? Was
So
it
at a point we had, um, we rented one apartment. That was the first thing that we did. And as we started growing, we managed to get to score the apartment next door, and we get permission from the building to tear down a wall and turn those 2 apartments into one big one. And then we started providing piercings, and we converted a bathroom of one of those apartments into the piercing station.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
and the piercing department started to grow. So I rented a third apartment just to do piercings. Uh, and again, same thing happened. I had to get another one for right next door to the piercings so we can expand. And we're running 4 apartments right now, and I have nowhere to sit. So I rent a fifth one to have an office, and a sixth apartment so I can sleep when I come to Miami. The building hated us. Our neighbors were really, really tired of us. The
Mm,
lobby was constantly cramped with people trying to get into the elevators to come and get tattoos and piercings. Uh, at this time, we're working by appointment only. And we got groups of people trying to score a same day appointment. At a time, we had a group of ladies made their way to the apartment pool, and they spent all day over there. It got us into trouble. We had a lot of supplies. Um, if you walked through the alleys in the apartment complex, you would see signs on the doors saying "Not Irish Tattoo."
mm.
Um, so yeah, we kind of became an annoyance to the building, and on top of that, it was risky because it was an apartment, and we were running leases year by year. So that side of operation, if you cannot think, I mean, come November, they can tell me, you know what, January, you're out.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was another factor to me, was like, okay, I need to get a proper lease. I need to get a proper space for the business.
Did you have to when you knocked down those walls, did you have to pay for that build out too, I would assume? So
Yes.
you probably had some, like, obviously minuscule compared to the cost of a full build out, but
Yeah.
you still had some cost of having to do that. So you're investing this money. Probably, when you're growing, like, you guys are collecting money when you do the tattoo, right? Or you do the piercing, but so you don't have receivable issues, but you still probably flying by the seat of your pants a bit. I would guess that's probably a pretty stressful time, uh, even before you do the build out. So you don't like the idea that they can literally tell you they're not renewing. Obviously, the tension with the other tenants that are there in that building. So you've decided you're going to do a build out. Was Tell us about the decision. Like, how long did you search for a location? Like, how did you go about that process of trying to find a spot
It,
um, to set up shop?
it found me. What happened is, there was an Argentinian developer in Miami that knew the brand from Buenos Aires, and they knew that we've been in Winwood for, I think it was 8 years, 7 or 8 years by this time. Um, and they were building a new development, and he called me and say, "Hey, I know you guys through some people that we have in common. I know you got a good brand. Are you interested in coming to see this new development?" And it just happened at the same time that I was managing all these issues. Um, so I went to see him, and this was my first ever contact with a broker, with a commercial real estate person. with that CRE situation. I've never had to deal with anything like this. Um, and what happened was he showed me a few places, and I say, "This is awesome. This is perfect. It's gonna be great." Um, we have. I'm gonna make it positive. At the time, I had a full time person answering the phone, giving directions to those who were looking up on Google.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm gonna have finally a place where people can look us up, and it's there that I have to go for a building. Um, so I sit down with these people, and I run the 7 year lease that they offered me, and with it before negotiating build outs or anything, I'm like, okay, this is the amount of money that I can put into the brand that is gonna last me 7 years, and it's not gonna mean that I mean, because the operation is running. If I'm gonna be investing a big chunk of money, I just want to make it worth my while.
Mhm.
So I sit down with him and I say, okay, here's the deal. I have $400,000. It's all I have, and it's literally all I had. And I have 8 months before I have to renew the lease. Can it be done? And they say, well, absolutely. And then I go, okay, but I don't know anybody. I don't know architects. I don't know GCs. I don't, so would you do the build out for me? And they were like, no, we can't do the build out for you, but we can give you a big TI, and I can just give you all my contacts, all my team. You just deal with them, and it's going to be great. They're great. They know us. They've been working with us forever. So he sat me down in front of a couple of architects, also Argentinian girls, very young, with no track record. I should have done, with in Argentina, we say with next Monday's newspaper, everybody's wise, right?
Yeah.
I should have known. They had no Google reviews. There was no track record of this architectural company. So again, we have a second meeting, and they provide with the ideas for the space. And again, I said once again, this is my budget. I don't want to spend more than $400,000. Um, if you guys are on board, let's just shake hands and do it. Now, don't worry about it. We got you covered. 3 weeks later, they sent me the proposal for $1 million.
Jeez.
So I'm like, all right. I mean, I'm still working. I'm running my business day to day. I mean, I don't have a huge pressure. I just want to do this. So I say, all right, guys. Obviously, we didn't understand each other. It's not going to work out. Thank you very much. Not going to happen. They called me again a few weeks later saying, hey, we worked some things around. We managed this and we touched that. And we can bring this build that down to 650. And again, I said, no, I'm not interested. This is my budget. Again, really me. I don't know how construction works. I should have known that when somebody tells you this is going to cost you $1, it's going to cost you three. In my
Yeah.
line of business, Curtis, if you come and get a tattoo and I tell you it's going to cost you $100 and
Yeah.
it's going to take 30 minutes, that's what you're going to get. So this was November 2022. And in January, they call me again and say, guys, we really want you there. I spoke to the landlord. I spoke to the GC. We can't make it for 400, but we're going to make it for 500. And the landlord's going to give you $100,000 TI. Is going to pay that to us. If you're on board, we're just going to do it. And we're going to be done in 6 months. You're going to be open in August 2023. Perfect.
Yeah.
We shake hands. This is January. Um, and we sign all the paperwork, and we get going, and we start receiving the project, and then whatever. This is almost March by the time we signed everything. And in April, after we signed all the documents, they sent us the finalized budget with the finalized official or whatever. We're back to $900,000.
Oh god. Had they even started, or was that, like, that was even before you signed the paperwork, and then it's like, "Oh, by the way, it's not 5, it's 9."
Yeah, I signed the lease. I paid for um the security deposits and everything, and I also signed the contract with these people um, because they were going to run everything from the design to the construction.
Yeah, that's horrible. Uh, so let's back up for a minute, because I know, like, from what we previous talked about, you didn't come from a business background, right? That's like you were hustling, like, this is how you started this stuff, and it was like you just kind of figured stuff out, which is like, I love those stories because I think people in reality have the ability to figure out a lot more than they think they do. And it takes the right type of person to do that and hustle that way. And I think you did that, and that's proof of what you've built and what you've done. But when you're saying I'm in 5, 6 apartments, right? And now you're going to a new facility, is that new facility giving you more capacity, I would assume, to
Yes,
do more people? So how big was that facility in comparison? Like, how much bigger could you be in that facility?
it was going to give them more capacity for. I mean, it was not going to be a huge difference, but again, it was going to be in one place,
Yeah, right.
uh, and it was going to give me. I was running two piercing stations in an apartment, and I wanted to have four piercing stations because that was the line of business that I wanted to grow more. Um, and it was going to give me a lot more space for my clients to enjoy. When we were in the apartments, we were sending people to the balconies, sending people to the alleys. All the hallways filled with people. So um, it was going to give me that, and it was going to give me a lot of foot traffic,
Yeah.
which meant for piercings, it was going to be great. Um, don't forget that by the time of me making the decision, I had about 9 tattoo artists, and they were all booked out for a couple months in advance.
Okay. Yeah.
So I couldn't really expand my tattoo capacity a lot because I didn't want to hire more artists, and they were all fully booked. But the piercing was going to be what was going to bring more money. Um, but yeah, back to what you just asked. I've always been a hustler. I'm a high school dropout. Um, I've started Iris Tattoo with $7,000. That was all the money that I've had. Um,
And you don't do
in
tattoos yourself, right?
I've
So
never done a tattoo in my
yeah,
life.
right. I remember you saying that, and I was
Um,
like, yeah, that's cool.
and it started as a side thing, and in the first 18 months, I was able to save up almost $100,000, which was the money that I used to start the operation in Miami.
Yeah.
It's been bootstrap, and it's all I've had. I didn't have any money before Iris Tattoo, and by the time we reached this situation where I'm $500,000 out of right, I was able to buy what it was our dream home in Buenos Aires, um, and I just bought a home in Florida, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to sell my Buenos Aires house. When I got these documents, and I remember we were gonna take a weekend off with my wife and my son and the dogs. We were gonna go to Captiva Island in Florida, and we received it the morning that we were gonna take that boat. She looked at me like we they they screwed us. They just wanted to take everything from us. Um, and it's pretty hard to put me emotionally down on my knees. But for a moment, I thought I just got played. I'm not gonna make it, and this is all I have. This is my son's future, and not only that, the the company I'm under an investor's visa. My visa is attached to the company. If I have to shut down the company,
Mm.
I gotta leave the country. I gotta take my son out of school. Uh, so this was the beginning of many, many, many sleepless nights, uh, because so far everything was growth. So all the stress and all the pressure was about containing
Yeah,
the amount of work that we were getting, how to manage the amount of cash that we were receiving, and
yeah.
and and that was the all the stress that I knew as an entrepreneur so far. Um, so now I got to deal with a complete different game.
It's so perfect. I would say it's so perfect that that happened right when you're trying to go for like a trip, right? For even if it's like just a weekend deal. It's like I actually just got home from a trip. First day I'm on the trip, I get a call about a client issue that they just blew up. That was nothing. It's like, of course, every time you try and do something like that as an entrepreneur, it seems like something happens that that gets you mentally out of that moment, and now all you can think about I was sure there's, like, probably some sort of, like, ruminating that you did in that time of where your just mind is just spinning. You mentioned this was supposed to be a 6 month. Did they update the timeline? Like, was it still supposed to be 6 months? So now you're saying, "In 6 months, I'm supposed to come up with essentially $500,000," or what? Like, where was your head when you got
Well,
that?
the 6 months was going to be August, and this is April, and
Yeah, right.
they haven't entered
Yeah.
the phase ones. We haven't even defined the layout, so
Mm.
I know it's going to be more, but I didn't know it was going to be that much more. They told me um, September, and then they said December, and that's where I thought, okay, am I going to have to renew the apartments lease, and that's going to add on whatever cost to this because even if it's a couple months, I got to renew for a year, and then if I leave, I got to honor that lease. Uh, and we had to make. I can make decisions pretty fast. I don't. I don't sit and think. And if I feel like okay, I'm screwed, I don't sit down and think, oh, how screwed I am. I act. So I told my wife we got to sell our Buenos Aires house. That was $350,000. Um, quick and with a bunch of information that I'm not gonna but to take dollars out of Argentina and bring it into the US is an operation itself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so we've we sold the house in Buenos Aires. We managed to get a little cash. Um, we we secure a loan from some family that we have here in the US. We didn't pull the cash, but we were like we touched it like if worst comes worst. Um, and we started pushing a little bit. And then by this is was the 5th of April. By the end of April, nobody was going to do anything at the space. The base, it was not even shell. We had no floors,
Mm.
right? We have not
So
approved
not been even started nothing had been started on, nothing been
nothing.
worked on. So now you know
Um,
for sure you're never like, you're gonna be paying another year of lease, on this other
yes,
place, even if you get yeah.
yes. Um, and I'm like, but not only that, they've already spent a lot of money, like securing materials and the GC. And I'm like, first of all, it's not going to be 900. It's probably going to be over 1.2 million. Second, I don't know when they're going to finish. And this is when I looked at my wife. Sabina and I have a fantastic work relationship. We're so different that for some reason it works really, really, really good. Um, and I remember this was very, very poetic because it was the final. I got a tattoo that says rock because I looked at her. She looked at me and she said, rock and roll. And I knew what she meant. I got rock and she got roll tattooed on. And I was like, okay, we're firing everybody. And she was like, yes, we're going to do this. So we fired the architects, we fired the GC, we got the keys to the place that was just rubble. Um, we hired an an architect from Argentina to do the floor plans remotely for us, and we hired somebody else here to sign them. We started walking to the city to request the permits ourselves. We we started finding, the guy who does the plumbing, the guy who does the electricity. I had no idea I had to deal with the fire department. I had no idea I had to deal with, and we just did it ourselves. So now we're running this crazy, crazy, crazy business. 9 artists, 3 piercers, 12 employees, working 7 days a week out of 6 apartments. We have a kid in school. We moved an hour away from the studio. Uh, and on top of that, we're there every morning at 6, either her or me,
Mhm.
to make sure that the guy who's got to do the 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 plumbing is there, that the guy who's got to bring the cement is there. And with I mean, zero, Curtis, I do not own a screwdriver. I don't know anything about
Yeah.
construction. A guy then met a guy and told me about this other guy, and I started bringing people in. We worked probably 18 hours a day, the two of us, 7 days a week, since early May 2023 until September 23, the day before Christmas Eve, when we opened the studio.
Mm.
And
Wow. So May to December, you got the whole thing complete. So that's less time than the original. I mean, well,
Mhm.
not the original timeline, the made up timeline before they bait and switched you with but
They
the
were
new
never gonna make it
timeline, the 8
happen in
months.
December.
You're there in 6 months, 7 months ish range, and you're opening that before the close of 2023.
Yes.
Wow. That is, I mean, especially again, not having that background, that's a beautiful thing. That is like, such a sign of just get done what needs to get done, right? That's just the mindset behind it. Did you have any other people from your shops helping you, or was it like you and your wife are trying to just get people on the right track, and then you're just going over to this spot and you're just grinding it out?
No, 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 because my team, the weight shifted to them on running most of the
Yeah.
operation. So it was just the 2 of us. Um, and again, I wish I could make it sound like it was a beautiful, uh, uh, like in the movies, that the scene where the building and the music's playing, it wasn't,
Yeah,
because at the
right.
same time, revenue dropped. So we were fighting 2 very hard battles. The first one was that, okay, with the money we're making, I can make this happen. But now suddenly we're making less and less money. I had a bunch of artists leaving. They kind of felt that the ship was sinking. Uh, so, and the COVID YOLO Florida was booming during COVID. By 2023, um, $2,000 that you can spend on a tattoo, that people were spending it on a tattoo because they had nowhere to go. For $2,000 in 2023, you can go to Italy for 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're losing revenue, we're losing clients, we're losing artists, and we're building this place, and our overhead is going to be way bigger than a bunch of little apartments. So on top of finishing, we're like, for the first time, trying to manage scarcity. My and again, in my business, for the first 8 years, my learning path was about how to manage abundance.
Yeah.
And now I'm just stuck with scarcity. We just don't have money. Um, and all the things that come with it. We bought a nice house in a nice suburban area because I wanted my kid to go to a nice school. And we were thinking, okay, should we just give up and go back to Argentina and start over? Should we just not fight this fight? Because the reward after the work of doing the build out wasn't looking that great. Like after that, then we got to think how we going to make money because the rent now is we went from spending about $10,000 in those apartments to $25,000 rent
Yeah.
plus
Yeah.
insurance plus the and just to give you numbers so you understand in 2022 in 2022 tattoo revenue was 3.6 million. In 23 it was 2.7.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, if you've lost artists and you have demand light, it's not are you thinking 24 is like you're gonna hope to get to 2.7? Like, where are you thinking? Is that mentally where you're kinda at as you're
Well,
thinking,
when I started my plans, I was thinking, okay, 3.6 because I'm working at capacity. I need to expand capacity, especially with piercings. This space is gonna make me reach $4.95 million. So that was my goal. By the time we were about to finish the construction, my goal was to try to go back to 3.6.
yeah, wow,
In
yeah,
reality, since 2023, we never went back up from 2.7.
yeah,
It stayed there at
yeah,
2.7 for 2024 to 2025.
wow.
Um, yeah.
Wow, I mean, that is, that's one of those deals where it's it's feels like everything that can go wrong does go wrong sorta deals, like, outside of, like, losing the business. I'm
Hmm.
curious though, like, was do you feel like there was of the dip to 2.7, how much of that do you think was, say, economic conditions, the uncertainty in the business that's just natural part of uncertainty, and how much of that do you think was because you guys were sprinting so hard on the other thing was kind of like a loss of focus on, your inability to just focus on the business? Like if you could have focused on the business, would it gone to 2.7 or what what is your feel on that? Obviously, you can't go back and know that, but
I think it's split in three almost equal parts. Number one is uh, um, where we are at in Wynwood, Miami, and most of Miami had a post COVID hangover. Like it overdeveloped, it over and then like I said, we used to have a lot of a lot of states did have like curfews and capacity max out, and Florida was you can do whatever you want. So a lot of people was coming to Florida. People that are from Florida couldn't leave anywhere. We had the stimulus checks. We had the and also for a moment, we all thought what's going to happen? Is the world going to end? Are we all going to die?
right.
So people were spending a lot of money on things that didn't need. So that's a big part of it. The second part is that we've we had a big team shift. I've lost a couple of artists, and I was not able to focus on finding the right artist to come and replace them. And also at the same time, and this is a big chunk too, um, the tattoo industry in 2023 started to oversaturate. So when I was in that apartment in the neighborhood we are in, it's called Wynwood, and it's a pretty, it's kind of like this. I want to say the Soho of Miami. Um, we were the only tattoo shop, By the time we moved out of that building, there were 3 tattoo studios in that building alone.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
We went from just us to about 32 tattoo shops in a 2-mile radius.
Wow.
So that also hurt. So yeah, and honestly, uh, back to your question, I don't know because in the last year and a half, we've only been focusing on how do we bring revenue back, and no matter what we do, we cap at 2.7, and we tried it all. Uh, so I don't really know exactly what it is, but I think it's a good mix of those 3 things.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, talking of, the artist leaving, right? I'd say that's kind of indirect, but a direct, because if you hadn't have been doing the build out, you probably would have been able to potentially replace them more quickly. So
Yes,
there's maybe some even residual impacts to that, right? Of like once once you kind of lose some of that momentum, it can be a little bit hard to get back. But
yes.
um, and I've seen it time and time again of people that we work with, is it does seem like it's never just one thing that goes wrong, right? It's multiple things that go wrong at the same time, and it all hits. But even sticking at 2.7, it sounds like you found a stability with that Miami shop, right? You found,
Mhm.
even though you maybe didn't have the margins that you had before, you still found a point where you're stable and what that looked like. How did you guys get to that point, in Miami from 2023 is horrible, feeling like everything is crashing to now, okay, we hit a stable point. And I think it was in 2025 that you opened Nashville, correct? Is
It
that
was late 2025, yes, it was
okay?
August
Right.
2025.
So talk to me about how did you, with that slightly reduced revenue, how did you get to that point of stability in Miami?
What happened was we tested a few things, and the first thing we say when we finally, um, reached I was gonna say the shore, but as you know, if you're an entrepreneur, you never stop
It's
swimming.
never. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I remember telling my wife when we moved into the new space, I like, "Okay, we just reached shore. Let's start looking for the coconuts because we need to eat, right?"
Yeah.
Um, so the first thing we realized was, um, the operations were a mess. We Staff was pretty unorganized. Our books weren't organized. Everybody was doing a bunch of things that there was no direction. There was no playbook. Uh, so while we're trying to fight to bring revenue and try to get creative, we did many events. We used to do like yoga classes plus tattoos um, to bring people in. Um, we also focus a lot of our days into creating some sort of systems for the studio. And I hate to say it now, but they work.
Yeah.
You know, like it it just it makes me angry because everybody's telling you the same thing. You just want to hear something different. Like, oh, come on, man, just I just want it to happen. And no, you got to do the work. You got to do create the systems. Um, and as we were building systems and as we were understanding that we could not break that ceiling, and now my overhead was big, so I don't only lose revenue, I've also my expenses are higher, so my margins are shrinking, and we're recognizing we're not going to be able to get the money back. We're not going to be able to save. We're living day by day. End of the month, I'm paying my mortgage. I'm filling up my car, and we're just spinning and spinning and spinning, and we're not making any money. We're not getting into more debt. which is great, but we're not making any money. And at a point, I told my wife, okay, listen, Miami is not going to give us money for a couple of years. I know that. We're just until we finish paying the small debt that we have, and until we stabilize this, or we find a way of controlling our finances, it's not going to give us the money that we need to, you know, go to sleep at night knowing that tomorrow's paid for. Um, and I thought Nashville was amazing. I came to Nashville once a couple of years to see a band, and I thought this city is calling Iris.
Mm,
Um, so again, rock and roll.
yeah,
I I brought her to Nashville for a couple of days. She was like, "I think you're onto something here." Um, we got no money, and I'm thinking, let's just use a credit card.
yeah,
Let's go for broke. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Um, so Nashville happened to be. Uh, I was able to bring into the game the lesson that I've learned from Miami. Um, I toured a couple of spaces, and I found one that I like it, and they were really eager to have us because it's an area that it is trying to develop. It's not quite there yet, and they like the brand. So I said, "Listen, I'm not gonna fight you over lease terms. I'm not gonna fight you over rent cost. I'm happy with the space. I'm happy with what you're asking. I'm not gonna ask you for a TI. What I'm gonna ask you is you build it for me."
yeah,
And this Argentinian guy from out of town that nobody knows walked in and convinced them somehow. I just gave them the plans and they built it for me. The build out that they allow was about 75% of the the money that I needed to finish it, and they were kind enough to finance throughout the lease the remainder.
mm,
Uh, and then everything that was not the build out, the supplies, the furniture, everything else, my credit card. And
yeah,
again, me driving back and forth from Miami with chairs and lamps and tattoo machines. It's Nashville has our sweat and blood on the floor and walls, but in a more happy way
yeah.
than Miami.
Well, and I mean, literally, probably my first impression of you is when I started seeing your stuff on social media was you and your wife huffing it back and forth between there. And I just, man, was like, that's a dude that is in it. And I just love seeing this because, it doesn't, we're not going to paint a rosy picture. It doesn't always lead to success, right? Sometimes there's going to be failures in that, but you could just tell, and this is just me speaking, I could just tell I'm like, this is a dude that he is gonna be successful because if he's willing to go to this lengths, you're putting your family, uh, I wanna say, like, kind of on hold, right, in a way, because it completely changed your life, but you were gonna do what was necessary to get Nashville to where it was, and I think that was cool to see. Um, and from what you said, Nashville is doing really, really well since you guys have launched it. Seeing really good growth there, and hopefully has seems like has a great future ahead of it. Right?
Yeah, and coming back to what you just said, before I answer that, most of uh, most of the people that I know on social media, and I'm pretty sure you also know this because you're a family man yourself. Um, when when the ghost of your own family security being in jeopardy is there, eh, that's when I'm like, I'm the last line of defense in my family. When they don't know what to do, they look at me. So when I don't know what to do, um, it's it's a lot, and to see her, you know, fearing and suffering. I'm a dreamer, and it every time I think of I got a gut pull. I want to do this. I just start walking, and she paves in front of me, and to feel that maybe I just led my family into. Again, we're only talking business. It's not we're not going to war or anything, but
Yeah, right.
it's their future, and and by this time, Rocco's my son. He came to the US when he's 9 years old. He's 13. He wants to stay here. He made friends. He's loving school. So there's a lot of pressure. Um, when I was building Nashville, and again to add drama to the movie, I say, okay, two one of two things can happen. Either Nashville's gonna take a few months until it makes me some money, or Miami keeps dropping revenue. If one of those two things happen, we might be able to survive. If both happen at the same time, we're dead. By the time I'm opening Nashville, guess what? Miami's last quarter of last year started going down. And that was the first time in 48 years that I felt I can control this. And I had my very first panic attack. I ended up in DR here in Nashville.
Wow.
I thought I was dying. I thought this is it. Uh, it's funny because I was having a phone conversation with somebody that I know from social media from X for the first time. We were having our first one on one, and I turned off the camera and I was laying on the floor thinking, this poor dude is gonna be here, knowing that I'm the last. His voice is the last voice I'm ever gonna listen, right? Um, so I drove myself to the ER, and that was rock bottom for me when I was like, "What did I do?" And then I want to say magically, but it's not magic; it's just compounding. Boom, Nashville got into gear, and mm, this is we opened mid August. September was already doing the numbers that I was hoping it'll make after a few months. Uh, in January, it was doing the numbers that I calculated for maturity, and it's already about 30% over what I calculated. Um,
That's
so
great.
it's providing for what Miami is not able to provide.
Yeah. What's your feel on Miami? Like, what do you think is kinda next for you in Miami? What are your how are you gonna try and turn that ship?
I think Miami needs the city needs another year or two to go back to some normal movement. This is not at all political, but the fact the immigration hardened really hurt the economy in Miami.
Yeah, I could see that.
30% of my clients were tourists. 30% of my clients were, uh, I want to say 33, were locals that could afford a high-end experience. And a big chunk of my clients were aspirational people that were, students on student visas, or people
Yeah,
working with unclear immigration status. Those people either stopped working or left. So Miami's going to stabilize. I need to bring uh, probably a third wheel to the team that understands growth and sales in a way that we don't. But I think it's going to stabilize. And by the time that this lease is done, my overhead is huge. Probably I'll embark in a new move out to a
With the
cheaper
lessons that
place.
you learned, right? Yeah.
Yeah, with the lessons I've learned to a cheaper space.
Yeah. Well, and I think the positive with Miami in that situation, I mean, it's a negative because it's outside of your control, but the positive is that it's outside of your control,
Mhm.
the economy in Miami. So it's like if you keep course and you see that recovery, that should naturally mean a recovery for you there. Your story here, you have so many ups and downs, but I think what I love about where you are is you're in a good spot, but there's still so much left to be told, right? You still have Miami that you're trying to solve for, and I think that is what business is, right? There is always something on the horizon, and there's always something that you come across, and the things that you've gone through are lessons that you can take and apply to the next thing as you come to that next thing. What would you say, just as kind of like a wrap up of like from these lessons that you've learned um, over that process, one or two things that you would say, maybe, obviously, you know, don't 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 give the architect free rein, right? Don't sign the document, don't do that. But any other kind of softer lessons or things that you're like, these are the things that I learned and pulled out of this that I know are gonna serve me in the future.
The number one is the one that really hurt me is that it's it's very common in young men that are entrepreneurs to believe that peak is the norm.
Yeah.
Peak is peak. I thought we're growing 50% year over year. This is the norm, and it wasn't. Revenue is going to drop. Something's going to happen. Knock on wood. Somebody's going to sue you. Your partner's going to leave. Um, so always know that you're going to leave a little bit of wiggle room for when you're not making that much. Um, Also that, and this is personal, but if I can share this with anybody, most times it works. Sometimes when the normal path is closing, don't just turn back. 99% of people would tell you, oh, you need these architects and these GCs. You can't do it yourself. You cannot run the city permits yourself with no experience. Yes, you can. I went with my little, folder and knock on the door and say, "Help me out. I want to get this done."
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing, and it's also pretty personal, is that we think there's time for a lot of things, and urgency is a beautiful thing when you're an entrepreneur. But you gotta be careful because when I started, I was under 40. Now I'm almost 50, and now I feel every blow hurts more,
Mhm.
and I gotta measure my jumps and my leaps more carefully.
'Kay. No, those are great, and, like, I've said this before, but, like, to your point of, like, you know, keep you don't have to turn back, right? You can figure it out, is like, when really, I mean, a lot of different paths and stories, but specifically on when I was doing social media at first, what I told people is I said, which I'm not near as active as I was back in the day, but it's like, if you woulda looked at me 6 months in, you would've every person would have told me that I was being unreasonable, but I just kept doing it, right? And part of that entrepreneur and then I had a breakthrough, and then it's like, "Okay, that's why I'm here where I am today." And the beauty and the honestly, the fear that comes from entrepreneurship, the difficulty of entrepreneurship is you're gonna have to do things and make decisions that everyone outside of that is gonna say you're crazy and you're stupid. And you have to know when is the right point to keep going and keep pushing, and when is the right point to take a turn or stop or
Yeah,
go that.
yeah.
And there's no right answer to that, and there's no playbook that you can run for that. It's gut and feel and it's heart and it's all those things and, um,
But in
you
their
know
defense, most of the things that we do as entrepreneurs are stupid
Yeah,
and they
right.
and crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of the things that I do fail. Um, it's just I work and I'm also trying. I'm working on not having to reach these situations, but I shine when I'm cornered against a wall. I mean,
yeah,
if I'm cornered and and the worst thing you can tell me is you cannot do it. I mean, what do you mean? I'm a high school dropout. I've never studied English.
yeah,
I was born in the suburbs in Argentina. I didn't have a visa to come visit in the U.S. and I own a business here and I live here. Um, Everybody was like, "What do you mean you're gonna do tattoos? Like, what is it? What's gonna be
yeah,
your day job?" We've we've sponsored 5 green cards. I have a second generation tattoo artist. My team bought homes. Um, th You just gotta do it. It's
yeah.
insane.
Say someone saying you can't do this is like, "Oh, you don't question me whether I can do this or not," right? It's a challenge to go do it. So, that's great.
It's more like, oh, one way to find out. We'll see. Maybe I can't, but
Yeah, yeah. But that's how you motivate yourself in that moment, right? Is like, "Oh, I'll show you I can," right? Well, thanks for sitting down. It was fun to walk through this, and I know I'll be cheering, and I'm sure everyone that listens to this be cheering you on to see that continued success. um, and look forward to kind of seeing a year from now, 2 years from now. There's sure to be other twists and turns, and let's see what those are and
absolutely.
how we navigate those. So appreciate you giving me the time and been good to get to know you a little bit more.
So grateful for this. Thank you, Curtis.